Well, if Donald Trump wants chaos, he's certainly got it. But this was a very, very important ruling yesterday, Lorna, when the Court for International Trade, 3 judges, one of the 3 appointed by Donald Trump, another by Ronald Reagan back in the 80s, and the third by Barack Obama, essentially ruled that Donald Trump had massively exceeded his presidential powers because the power of the purse strings, including regulating trade and imposing things such as tariffs, that power doesn't belong to the president. It belongs to the Congress, the American Parliament, if you will. So by Donald Trump using the IEPA Act of 1977, an International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which stems from the time of the oil shock, Jimmy Carter trying to find ways of buffering the American economy and tempering inflation at a time when other countries were interfering, including OPEC and so on. Donald Trump's use of these powers has been ruled effectively unconstitutional. That is a very, very important ruling. What we have seen today, of course, is an appeals court coming in over the top saying, OK, this is going to be appealed. In the meantime, we're going to pause yesterday's ruling. It doesn't overturn the ruling. It simply says, OK, well, the tariffs that were removed yesterday, that were ruled unlawful yesterday, can come back today pending an appeals process happening. The big question now is, how quickly does that appeals process happen?
Yeah, and in the interim, you've got countries who are trying to negotiate trade deals. They're walking a tightrope, aren't they?
This is an X factor. If you are any nation trying to come to an agreement with the United States, should you right now be negotiating a deal based on the assumption that Trump is allowed to impose these tariffs or that he is not? Well, the latest judicial ruling says he is not allowed to. These are illegal tariffs. These 145% tariffs or 30% tariffs that he's been imposing on the likes of China. Trump is allowed to impose certain tariffs. There is no doubt about that, but there is a 15% cap and a 150-day limit, and there have to be all sorts of hoops that you have to go through looking at what impact is this going to have, what is it designed to do. But this really does throw right out the door, Lorna, this idea that Donald Trump can impose massive tariffs across the board on all nations in defiance of all sorts of trade agreements and in defiance of courts that say he hasn't got the power to do it. Donald Trump's fundamental plan, which is to replace income tax at a federal level with tariffs that are effectively a sales tax, mostly paid by American consumers, remember, when they go to the store, or American importers who pass it on to consumers. So this is a huge blow to Donald Trump's economic reordering of both the domestic economy in the United States and, of course, the global economy, as these hundreds of trade deals are still being hammered out.
A blow to that, John, but perhaps less so to his MAGA base when him and all the White House spokespeople that have come out in the last 24 hours saying the judiciary is attacking our political system. That plays to some of the strengths within the Trump administration.
It does, and to their ignorance of how their system of government works. It is the job of the courts to look at what a president is doing, look at what the law says and what the Constitution says, and say, are these things legal that Donald Trump is doing? Now, the court yesterday said they are illegal. He hasn't got the power. And this is tremendously important because the President of the United States, as we know, is hugely powerful in a lot of ways, but there are limits on those powers, including the powers given to the courts to decide on things, to the Congress to decide how to spend money. So when Donald Trump is snatching at the powers of other branches of government, which are co-equal to balance out his powers, and then the White House is accusing the judiciary of a judicial coup, that is very, very inflammatory rhetoric. But you're right, on a political level, Lorna, yes, the narrative plays out to Trump supporters. This is activist judges getting in the way of a democratically elected president. No, that is not true. He's not democratically elected to exceed his powers. He was elected to be president, and the powers of the president are constrained by the courts and the Constitution. That's a crucial difference that a lot of people are really skipping over right now.
Hey, John, I want to ask you about tacos. I'm not inviting you to dinner, but why did taco get the president so upset?
Well, this is something that really must niggle with him, this acronym that's going around Wall Street now, Lorna. TACO, Trump always chickens out. This idea that he announces something, whether it's a tariff or a trade deal or some bold and eye-catching executive order, but that he often, ends up backing away, whether it is because the courts have come in and said, sorry, Mr. President, that's illegal, you don't have the power to do it, or whether because the bond markets freak out when he imposes some tariffs, he puts them on pause. Now, for Wall Street to essentially say, don't worry about him. We don't need to make buying and selling decisions in the long term based on the chaos that he's creating, because he talks a big game, but we don't have to listen to him every day. That bothers Donald Trump because he likes to see the stock markets bounce up or down when he says something. Just as he likes to see his poll numbers going up and he doesn't like them when they go down, he likes to have an impact. He likes to be the centre of attention. So if Wall Street, a lot of people that he knows very well, people with a lot of money, just like he has, if they're saying, forget about him, he's weak, he'll chicken out, that is really going to niggle him, and it may goad him into not chickening out, not backing down on some of these tariffs. So why this acronym is being spread around and why they are provoking the president with this little niggle remains to be seen.